Okay, very good. Man, I think we are all getting smarter here. Manny Fresh with the $10 super chat says, in my opinion, feminism is simply neo-Marxism. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think that Marxism promotes feminism,
Okay.
but feminism itself is something that you can even say came out of Marxism. So Marxists did push feminism quite a bit, but
Sure.
really what pushed it over the top in the United States was the occults, which came out of Protestant sects. Those were the people who really ended up pushing. They were the original architects and authors of feminism. Though I do agree that that neo-Marxism is now part and parcel of what feminism is, and there's a lot of overlap between the
Yes.
ideologies,
Yeah.
particularly when it becomes egalitarianism and people are interchangeable widgets. But feminism, in many ways, is even more invasive because the system itself is always elusive. It's based around power dynamics nobody can even do anything about. Within Marxism, you might be able to do something with financial power dynamics. Like
Right.
if you make $500 and I make 200, right? I can take X amount of your 500, and now we have an equal amount of money. So, so even if that's a really bad idea, we can still at least do that, right? So
Sure.
that's something we
Right.
can do. You can't do the types of things which would be necessary to create egalitarianism between men and women because you have strength differentials and you have
Yes.
different ways of thinking and you have
Yes.
different, like you're not interchangeable with them. So you can't even really do anything about it. Feminists have recognized this problem of compatibility even within Marxism and have stated multiple times. There's feminists, for instance, who want to begin lowering the testosterone level of males
yeah.
at birth so that
Crazy.
the strength equalization is the same, right? And things like
That
this.
is,
So
that is absolutely crazy, man. Jesus Christ. Ben with the $10 super chat says, people like Andrew because men want to be religious, but the idea of a Protestant quote, Jesus is my boyfriend, or how you have to be a pushover if you're a Christian, Andrew shows the quote original way. What are your thoughts on that?
oh, I mean, it's true.
Okay.
So a lot. If you look at, I'll explain the split.
Okay.
Protestantism is somewhere around 60-40. The Catholic Church is around the same, right? Now, don't quote me. This isn't direct. I'm just explaining that it's lopsided.
Okay.
Women versus men.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
women in the Protestant Church about 60%, right, to 40%.
Yeah.
I think it's actually even higher than that. And I think Catholics it's closer to 60-40. But again, these are just rough estimates.
Okay.
But it is
All right.
lopsided. Orthodoxy is the other direction. It has more men in it than it does women because it adheres to the actual patriarchal nature of Christianity.
Who
This
knew?
is not this is not to make the statement that women are not valued inside of Christian ethics. They are, and they should be. But the idea that this is not a patriarchal faith is just absolutely insane. And you see a lot of Catholic feminists who can't even reconcile this. Imagine the patriarchal nature of Catholicism itself, where you have a pope who can only be a male as the Godhead, who is giving out papal decrees, right? He is the representation of, let's say, the mouth of God in this particular, hierarchical structure.
Mhm.
That moves down to his bishops, who are in a hierarchy, and to cardinals and to priests, and et cetera, et
Monsignors.
cetera. And all of them must be men within this hierarchy. So these are patriarchal faiths, and they always have been patriarchal faiths. Same thing, even the apostles, all of it, right? All of the teachers of Christianity have always been men, and they always will be. So what has happened is, as Protestants have perverted the word of God, they have made things like female pastors a thing. They've made,
Oh my God, yeah.
women as the kind of new voice of the church is absurd. It's not that women's concerns, right? Their concerns inside of churches shouldn't be adhered to, but they shouldn't have any authority whatsoever. And they've never. So that's not the way it's supposed to work. So what happens is, oftentimes women will try to browbeat me into what I call the cult of be nice, where they reduce the entire religious ethical framework of Christianity and Christian ethics to just be nice.
Turn the other cheek.
Well, it's just be nice. It's a motto, and it's based around a culturally relative version even of what niceness is. And so ultimately, it has nothing to do with Christian ethics at all. They're just trying to weaponize your faith against you. And it's perfectly acceptable for you to tell them to shut up, sit down, mind their business, go away, tell them that they're dumb, that they're retarded, because ultimately what they're doing is perverse. right?
Yes.
They're doing something which is perverse, and so you really don't have to put up with it. And I think you even have a duty not to.
And not only that, I think making women leaders in the church, that's part of your definition of feminism, is the dissolving male authority, breaking up the patriarchy. We got quite a few super chats. CHD with the $5 super chat says, thanks for answering my questions, BPF. I think it's called, quote, catch and release game. Glenn explained it, spinning plates without sleeping with them. I guess that's what he was talking about. I think he's referring to you getting experience with women without having to get your dick wet. In other words, I think that's what he's probably referring to.
Yeah. Well, why do you need to feed into degeneracy in order to, like, it's such a bizarre take that you have to sleep with women in order to get experience with them. When I asked Myron about this directly, he also didn't really have an answer as to why you needed to sleep with them.
And it's
why is that a necessary kind of entailment of the position of dating? It seems to me that courtship and dating, you can get to know somebody really well.
Yeah.
And people bring up bizarre issues with this. I can even give you some counter arguments that I've heard. Okay. Here's a good one. Compatibility. You want to make sure that you're compatible with the other person. What's so bizarre about this, though, is that isn't the goal to get a virgin?
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
So if the goal is to get a virgin, how do you test out compatibility?
Right.
That's a contradiction in terms. But let's assume for a moment that they're not a virgin, right? Okay. Even then, almost every man on earth is compatible with every woman on earth.
That's absolutely right.
The reason that is necessary is because otherwise our genetics would not be able to continue and we would expire. So
yes. Oh my God, yes. Yeah, the female orgasm is irrelevant to the actual purpose of sex, which of course is to reproduction. Is for reproduction. And it also and I think you won me over with this argument, and I think you are 1,000% right. We got a lot of men out here who are incels and virgins. They know, trust me, these boys know female nature inside and out, and they've never had sex before. So you don't have to be some demon to figure out who women really are, because just like you said, is in the grand pantheon of all relationships, it really is kind of the least important part in terms of getting to know someone. You don't have to have sex with a woman to get to know her. And I think some of us, and listen, I've been down that road. I've slept with more women than I care to admit, but the reason why is just because, and I'll admit it, I just didn't have dick discipline. See a pretty woman, I want to go have sex with her, blah, 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 blah. And what it comes down to is, I think there are a lot of alcoholics who say, well, the reason I'm an alcoholic is because something happened to me when I was younger, or I had this trauma. And that could all well be true. But there are a lot of alcoholics out there who just like to get drunk.
Yeah. So this is a good way to put it, right?
Okay.
I drank because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm not an alcoholic by any metric, but I like to drink because I enjoy it.
Sure.
And I'm sure most of these guys like to have sex with a lot of women because they enjoy having sex with a lot of women. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that the position is justified. It doesn't mean that the position itself makes any sense, or that by not engaging in this, you wouldn't actually have better outcomes and better societal outcomes. And as men, we understand we have greater duties, not just to ourselves, but to our community. And our community becomes our country. And so all of this is an extension of our own genetic gene pool, and also of our own kind of, wide birth family. So it's going to always go like this. Your family is the most important thing.
Right.
If you're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your family, your respect in status, your social status climbs astronomically. Most men, even degenerate men, have some kind of respect for a person who has a family.
Sure.
Right? Sure. At least some rudimentary respect. However, most men who are high men of status, who own large businesses, corporations, the real people who can help you out in life, often look for men who have families, because it shows and demonstrates that they have some sense of duty, responsibility, and they probably won't leave their job or workplace to be dependent on their income from that job. So they're probably a much safer bet than single men. So there's a status which happens with that. We start at the baseline family unit, but then what about the community itself?
Right.
Well, when men have a greater duty to the community, they become leaders inside of that community,
Mm-hmm.
just by virtue of who they are and what they're doing. Perhaps
Right.
they're
Right.
assisting with charitable events, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're event coordinators, or perhaps they're primary people of interest at their church, things like
Mm-hmm.
this. But they're fulfilling some kind of duty, and that'll give them status inside of the community as well. And then this extends into the political. Maybe perhaps you are a letter writer or somebody who wants to be involved in campaigns at the national level, right? And then so all of these are status jumps, but it all starts with the idea of a very connected family unit in a
Mm-hmm.
nuclear family unit. Now, does that mean that when you say nuclear family, that grandpa can't come live with you if he's sick? Of course not. Grandpa can
Right.
come live with you. Does that mean your kids need to be out of the house by the time they're 18? Of course not, especially not in this economy.
No.
And is cross-generational family units or bicentennial farms, things like this, appropriate? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
When we say nuclear family, all that we're talking about is this. We're talking about a primary structure where there's a mom and a father.
Mm-hmm.
They have some kind of deep connection with each other.
Mm-hmm.
They both put the welfare of their children and each other before themselves.
Right.
And when they do that, that family unit is going to be bonded and very strong. And then that opens up the avenues for community. Now, what is the community's duty to you? Well, the church community's duty to you is to help support you through times of trouble and strife, to assist you in your marital problems, to even assist you in financial straits, dire straits, help you perhaps through nepotism and other things, get various jobs that you might need, and things like this, so that you can perform your duty back, right?
Right.
So that's the community's kind of duty back to you. So men understand this almost intuitively. And one of the things that drives us insane and has driven men completely insane over the last 40 years or so is that the community itself is vanishing.
Right.
Example of this, the reason Gen Z is so up. When I was a kid, I would play marbles in the street. I'd play like I would go out with my friends and we had little bags of marbles.
Yeah.
And we would play in the gutter, you know what I mean? We would play marbles.
Yeah.
And we would we'd play basketball. We'd do all kinds of things, right? I would go out during the day and I wouldn't come back till it was dark, basically.
Hey,
leave the house till the street lights came on. So the thing is that gives you a good sense of community.
That makes perfect. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that gives you a good sense of community.
Is that the reason? Is the fact that men intuitively understand that a man with a family, wife, kids, etc., is that the reason why we don't elect, players for our president? Is that the reason why? Is that the reason why I guess all of our politicians, have to be seen with their wife and kids? Is that intuition that we're all thinking? And I think that goes with both men and women.
That moves towards trust, the trust effect. So what you're seeing there is a sign of status.
Okay.
It's saying, okay, not only am I a community leader, perhaps I'm rich, perhaps I'm handsome, right? But I have the ultimate status in society, which is a wife and children.
Okay.
And so this becomes the ultimate status and the thing which needs to be protected over all other things, which is the family unit itself. Absolutely. And so the idea here that they're trying to show you is, hey, I'm like you, right? I want this thing here as protected as you want those things over there, which is your family dynamic,
right?
You know what I mean? And this type of thing. So the family unit itself has to be the first order of protection, so that you can fulfill your other duties and obligations to the community, and so that they can fulfill it back to you.
That makes perfect sense. I've never had it explained that way, but I think we all understand that. It's just every once in a while, some guys like me have to have it explained to me. Your wife is in the chat, says, Donovan, please DM me later. I would love to send you a copy of my book. Absolutely. Mike Steele with the $5 super chat says, shout out to my man Donovan and the GOAT Andrew. And yes, one of my concerns about marrying a Christian woman is that she will be, quote, wet for Jesus.
What does that mean?
What do you think he means by that?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard that term before.
Yeah, neither have I. If you would, in the chat, clarify that, if you would. Infinite Oneness, $5 super chat says, Andrew, please recommend books to be a logician / debater like yourself for someone who is a complete knucklehead. Wow.
I would look at I'd look at the history of philosophy.
Okay.
I had a copy of it right next to me that I could show you, but I reference it quite a bit because it doesn't just give the ideas behind the pathways of logic, but the actual stories of the people and how they came to these pathways of logic. And I think that that's very helpful.
Yeah, because I can, and I've never read or seen that book, but I can tell every once in a while when you're in these debates, I can tell you sort of go into that well. Ben with the $5 super chat says counter argument is this is a product of understanding how to attract a woman, not the goal. It's a reflection of understanding how they work. What say you? I guess this is the counter argument to you don't have to have sex with women to understand women.
Well, so you have two problems. The first is that you ruin the duty aspect. So if it is the case that you think that men should marry a virgin, then if you fuck a chick and take away her virginity, then you're basically ruining the potentiality for another man to have that virgin, right? So that's the first. Of course, that's the first failure, right? Failure in duty. The second failure is I don't really understand how is a necessary understanding for the attraction of women. I don't understand why you could not attract them, even to the point where they would like to engage in the act with you, but then you just don't engage in the act. I don't understand why that's problematic.
That makes it. That makes sense. I've never heard it explained that way. Client Siege 20 with the $10 super chat says, "What would be your prescription to be a secular man who wants to have a family in the U.S. when the man has no authority over a family anymore due to the state the state usurping the father's authority?"
The only thing, so this is going to be something of a poison pill, right? And this sucks because prescriptively, here's the truth.
Okay.
The truth is that if you're a secular man, okay, and you get married, you're a damn fool. Every law is staged against you. Now you can do things to mitigate this, like a prenuptial agreement and other things. But here's the thing I don't really understand about secularists getting married at all. Okay. What is the point? So if it's not for the purpose of religiosity, any declaration which you make can equally be broken by word.
Right.
So if you say, well, my word is that we're together and exclusive and married, but we don't involve the state, and by word we can break that, right? Why is that not just as good as, well, by word is not good enough, we must have the state? I don't actually understand that. That makes no sense from a secular perspective. Why can't you just by word have marriage? Like that's never been something that I've been able to reconcile in my head. If you can have all the same perks of marriage without having the state introduced into some type of contractual obligation for your partner, why wouldn't you do that?